Welcome to Blockdowns Asia Developers Meetup number 36. I'm Maricin Song and I'll be your host for today. And with me is Lance Terrence Magsampo. So we are both developers here, and we would like to begin by introducing what Blockdevs is. So Blockdevs Asia's purpose is to organize and engage blockchain developers in the Philippines by networking, representation, education. We want to make sure that more people understand what blockchain is, and that's why we hold these events. So everyone is more aware and they can understand our purpose. So Blockdevs Asia has a lot of sponsors, and one of its major sponsors is Port Incorporated. Our major sponsor is Port Incorporated. The office that you're in right now is owned by Port Incorporated. Both of us, Lance and I, are both software developers for several years here in Port. Our staff right now are all for Port, and we also have employees here who are here to support the event for Blockdevs Asia. So, without further ado, let's begin. So this is Onchain game development. So before I begin, what's your favorite game? You can raise your left foot. Who here knows what a game is?
Fortnite.
What do you like about it?
I don't know, I just that they worked on the security side of it, but I never touched the game. I don't know anything about it.
Okay. Who else knows what Fortnite is? Okay, what is it?
Battle Royale.
A battle royale game. Okay. Played over the internet, I assume. Who else has another favorite game? Or you just don't play games? You don't do anything. What's Valorant? PvP game. I love it. Specifically guns. Okay. PvP shooting game. Okay. What do you like about it?
It's fast moving and gameplay.
Oh, okay. I thought you liked it because it's violent, but okay. Yes, who else likes Valorant? Okay. What do you like about it?
The heroes and the creativity about their skills and so on.
Oh, there's heroes. Why are they?
Agents.
Agents.
Yes.
Is that what you call the characters?
Mhm.
Okay. So everyone knows what a game is, and everyone's played a game. No one in the world has ever not played a game, right? Even rock, paper, scissors the game. Tongue kids. So, all games, like the games that you just mentioned, especially online games, they end and a database. The front end is whatever you see on your screen, whatever is facing you. The back end's purpose is to bring whatever you see here to the database, to the storage of data. So when you do a kill on Valorant, I assume, when you do a something, when you kill someone, it gets actually killed. So everyone knows that, okay, this person's dead. So it's broadcasted to every other front end. So it looks like this. If you were, oh my god, 1, 2, 3, 4. A, B, C, and D. Okay, we have player A, player B, player C, and player D. And they're all playing Valorant. So this is player A, player B, player C, player D. Player A moves 5 cells to the right. It all appears here, right? Because they have the same backend database, it's connected to their front end, everyone knows that this player moved. So what happens? Who owns Valorant, by the way?
Riot.
What? Riot? What? R-I-O-T?
Yeah.
Okay, Riot. Okay. What happens if Riot closes down? What happens to Valorant?
Shut down.
Shut down, no more Valorant, you can't play anymore. That's it. That's the end of the game. Do you know any other games that have shut down? Tetris? Didn't know it shut down, but okay. So you don't know any other game that's shut down, Royce? Ross? What's Ross?
Rules of survival.
Rules of survival. Okay, that shut down. Ang alam ko lang, Ragnarok. Okay. So, when that happens, this player, they all can't play anymore. Right? That's it. That's the end of their game. That's the end of their life if they were all gamers. So one solution is on-chain game development. So on-chain gaming requires that games solely use smart contracts, autonomous pieces of code executed by blockchains to store their game logic and data. Are there any words there that you don't fully understand?
All of them.
Very good. Okay, let's start dissecting it. Okay, so when we say blockchain, let's start with that. Blockchain. So most things, we have one central database and that gets transmitted everyone else. So for example, in a bank, you withdraw 5 pesos. In their database, your 5 pesos is gone because you withdrew it. That gets transmitted everywhere so that everyone knows you actually withdrew 5 pesos. So the difference between using a blockchain is you don't have a central database. You don't have one entity controlling that information. So what if I go into BPI, I change your information, I say this person owns only 5 pesos. All your money's gone and I transfer it to myself. You don't even know that's happened because it's all controlled by one entity. So what the blockchain does is it replicates the same information everywhere. So that if this happens here, it all gets shared everywhere else. Does that make sense? So instead of having a centralized information, we have decentralized information. Information shared everywhere else. It's public. Does that make sense? Okay. So next, let's go with smart contracts. Here it's defined as autonomous pieces of code executed by blockchains. So if a blockchains or groups of computer, they're executed by the blockchain. So what is autonomous? So autonomous, according to this dictionary, is having the freedom to govern itself or control its own affairs. Having the freedom to act independently, denoting or performed by a device capable of operating without direct human control. So there's no person who has to control it. It just works by itself. So smart contracts are like contracts, but they work without anyone having to touch them. Does that make sense? Okay. So let's go back to that example. This definition said that on-chain gaming requires to store their game logic and data in smart contracts. So this is the logic part, this is the data part, and it all goes into smart contracts. So you only have the front end talking to smart contracts. So does that make sense? should change the question. Did that not make sense? Okay. So what are the benefits of on-chain game development? For one, it's open source. It's public information. Everyone can try to replicate it. Everyone can see what's happening. It's decentralized. It's information that's not controlled by one entity. If one node goes down in the blockchain, it's not going to stop the game forever. That's just one node that stopped. Low risk technical innovation. It actually all works in the actual blockchain. So every other blockchain thing that you know, do you know crypto? Do you know NFTs? Sometimes they have high risk, right? And sometimes they fail. And on-chain game development makes it so that we can kind of research these technologies without risking so many things. And aesthetic diversity, because it is all primarily just back-end code, just code, you can hook up a Unity game onto it. You can hook up a website, you can hook up anything. And it will function with the same code. So it can look like anything. You can have a Middle Eastern game or something, or European, with the same code. So of course there is also some caveats to on-chain game development, such as it's all dependent on blockchain speed and scalability. The blockchain isn't as fast as when you shoot someone dies automatically because it has to be validated. Transparent clear actions, because everything is public information, you know everything already. So have you ever played games with fog of war? No? In Valorant, how do you play? I thought that was your favorite game. How do you play Valorant?
FPS game, 5v5. So if
Five-
someone dies, they will respawn in the next one.
Okay, so you have 5 players against 5 players. Do you know where your opponents are?
No.
You don't know that beforehand, right? That's all information that should be known to you. But because it is a blockchain, everything is transparent. You already know where that person is because it's already written that this person exists in this XY plane. So next, because it is open source, it can also be manipulated by bots. Because you don't have to because there's no way to validate that this method was done by a bot, this method was done by a person. You can't prove humanity yet. So there's also technical limitations. Other technical limitations such as randomness can be cheated on-chain and stuff like that. But I think the positive stuff outweigh all the negative stuff. And today we will showcase one of the ways that we can actually start with on-chain game development. So Lance will further discuss it.
Thank you for that energetic presentation, Maurice. So I hope you had like a basic understanding of what on-chain game development is. It's because now we are slowly moving into the technical stuff. So I will be sharing or discussing to you today the main topic of this afternoon, which is mod framework. All right. So moving on. So here's what you're going to learn. We are going to be discussing the description itself of mod. What mod consists of, because it is a framework, so there are lots of features or functionality inside of mod. All right. The next thing is the basic understanding of the process and structure of mod. Later on, I will be showing some code examples for you to understand, like the basic process or flow or the code itself, which is the directories there, so that you can understand how mod works. All right. So, but before I proceed with mod framework itself, I'll be showing some examples of the games or the things that you can do with mod framework. All right. So the first example that I'll be showing is the game called Imagine. So Imagine was jump-started or first done by these 5 guys over here. So yeah, I'm this one. I'm on the right side. Yeah, and then the one in the middle is our CTO of this very company, which is Kaspar. He's not here. He's currently out of the country. which is he's attending some events like this. All right, and we've started developing the Imagine for an international hackathon that was held at Paris, but it was held virtually. So we are working 5 days straight here in the office working for that game. So I'll be showing the screenshots of the game for now. Later, you might be able to play it. We will be providing a local computer in order for you to play the game. So the game Imagine is made with Mod Framework. So it is an autonomous world game. So earlier, you had an idea of what an autonomous means from Maurice, which you have the freedom to act independently. So same here, the game is mainly generated by AI. So you are familiar with ChatGPT, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's mostly generated starting from the maps, the locations, the descriptions of the maps, and you also will start with a basic story that you have a certain goal in order to finish the game. So even the avatars are generated by the AI. You'll actually get to choose with the following options of the avatar based on the selections that you've given the AI. So yeah, and then we also have the battle system, which you can face off or fight your friends. It's also a multiplayer game. So yeah, and also NPCs and other stuff. So that's one. So yeah, we get to take a look later if you want. So the second one is actually before BDA, while we are preparing for the BDA, we actually created a basic application because earlier the game Imagine was more on the complicated advanced stuff. So we've made a basic, simple on-chain rock, paper, and scissors. It is basically rock, paper, and scissors, but it's on-chain. It's up there in the blockchain. So I'll be giving an example. So for example, those two windows, browser windows are a different local computers. Okay, so for example, I'll be entering my name, and let's say Maurice is the other one.
Yes.
All right, so let's just assume that we are both in room number 1. So actually, you can join in any other rooms. Yeah, later you'll be able to see the code, or maybe you can actually play the game if you want. So here, let's say Maurice joined the room. So it's actually still waiting for player, and it's looking up there on the blockchain, seeing if there's any players on the other side of the room, and which I will join. So as you can see, it will automatically see that I am on the other side of the room. So yeah, it's just what you'd expect in a normal rock paper scissors game. Rock paper scissors game, where for example, scissors. Yeah, and then that's all there is to it. It's just the basic logic of rock, paper, and scissors. And then I've also inputted a code that whoever wins or whoever reaches to the score or scores of 3 actually wins the game. And then let's just assume that Maurice wins. And there, it shows on both the local computers, even if you're in the other side of the world, it will show that, yeah, Maurice wins. So that's one of just thousands or hundreds of thousands of possibilities that you can do with Mod Framework. All right. So moving on, now that you saw some examples, we are now going to begin with Mod Framework. But before the Mod Framework, I would like to ask you first, guys, if you know the word framework itself. Do you have any ideas on what the word framework is? None? None? Okay. So if none, I'll just go straight to the point and explain what framework is. So in basic terms, a framework is, let's say, for example, I'll give you an example, that I am planning to build a spaceship that's made out of Legos. But in order to do that, the traditional way or normal way of making a spaceship Legos is, of course, starting with a single brick of Lego, right? And then I'll add up, and then up until I can make a big spaceship of Lego. But the thing is, it's really complicated because if you're planning on creating a huge spaceship that's made of Legos, it's going to take some time, lots of time. So we are going to compare the framework with, because there are already pre-existing, pre-made frames for Legos, which will actually help you build what you are planning to build in a much faster time or in a more efficient way. So yeah, that's what I can compare framework in a basic terms. So the very meaning of framework is that it actually acts as a support in order for you to build something from zero to something. It actually consists, or it has sets of libraries or tools inside. So that's mod framework is also that, because it is a framework. So now we would be tackling to the description of mod. So this is actually based on the documentation of mod. You can check it out if you want. The site is mod.dev. So if you want, there's the documentation. But it says that mod framework is a framework for ambitious Ethereum applications. Yeah, it compresses the complexity of building EVM apps. So I'm assuming that you guys have no idea what EVM is, right? So EVM means Ethereum Virtual Machine.
You just made it hard.
Yeah. Ethereum Virtual Machine is, based on the word itself, it's a machine, and it's up there on the blockchain, the cloud, and it executes the smart contracts. The smart contracts that, just like Maurice have said earlier, yeah, if you're going to compare it again in a real world example, so let's say you have a computer, right? And a computer has different parts inside the computer. You have the graphics card, you have the CPU, you have the anything. It serves as like the processor or the CPU of your computer. It executes the tasks in order for your computer to run smoothly. So same as the EVM, but in the blockchain. All right. So that's the basic idea of, or the basic description of mod. And it is a stack, as you can see, because just like earlier I've said, framework consists of different types of libraries, right? So it is a stack. And later, the next slide, I will show you the virtual representation of the different sets of tools inside mod. So let's move on to it. So as you can see here, we have 4 boxes. First, we have the blockchain database, client database, UI calls, and smart contracts. So the first one, let's tackle blockchain database. So this is up there in the clouds, the blockchain database in simpler terms. The client database is mostly, are you aware with the Postgres or MySQL? So it's mostly on the server stuff database. Alright, so next one is smart contracts. So this is actually where all of the conditional instructions that you want your game to have. Like, let's say for example, I want to make an FPS game, such as Valorant, right? And you want to have a condition where if player 1 hits player 2, and it's going to deal some damage. So all of the logics, just like that one, it's going to be here inside the smart contracts. And the UI calls, this is going to be inside your client application on what the user sees. So everything that you've built in these 3, let's say you have different variations of data and conditional logics and instructions for your game. You can show them on your UI or your screen finally, since you already have built some foundation up into your Onchain game. Alright, so the next slide, yeah, I just said that it's inside mod. I should have shown this instead of this one. Alright, so moving on. So what are the advantages of mod framework? So one of the advantages is this one. As you can see there, the blockchain database and the client database is connected, right? So whatever's happening on the blockchain database is also happening on the client database, which the UI can connect to. Because, of course, in blockchain, for those who do not have those much of knowledge with blockchain, whenever you're interacting with up there in the blockchain, let's say you want to make a transaction, and then it's going to take some time. It's not that instant because you have to confirm it, and it's going to be processed inside a block, which is why it's called blockchain, because there are multiple blocks, and a certain block contains lots of transactions. So it's going to take some time in order for the blockchain to process each and every one of that blocks. So yeah. it's always synced, so it's instantly being shown to the UI, which is the next advantage, that one. Whatever's happening into this two is being immediately shown into the UI. So later, you will see the difference between a normal interaction with the blockchain database without the mod functionality and with mod functionality, which has the optimistic rendering. Alright, so the smart contracts here, just like what I've said, it has the condition logics behind. Right? So moving on, I'm now going to be starting with the process of building with mod. So I did my best into simplifying the steps in order to start making an on-chain game. And there are three, actually. The first one is the configuration. So like, for example, I want to create a table that contains the list of players. So that's where it's going to happen, inside the configuration. And you're going to put everything in a file called modconfig. Later you will understand where this is coming from. So the next one is the contracts or logics. So yeah, we've already declared a list of players or maybe a list of different actions. We can now start coding the functionality of the game, like the damage and other stuff. It's going to be here in the step number 2. The step number 3 is that everything that you've done in step 1 and 2, you can actually call them together into your UI. So mod has this feature where it automatically gets all of the generated smart contracts that's been generated here in this step number 1 and 2, and you can actually call them directly into your UI. So into what do I mean by UI? Actually, you can actually use mod with like for example, are you aware with React framework? It's actually a JavaScript framework that composes lots of JavaScript-based building functions. And you can actually work mod with Unity if you want to have a 3D game. But such as the example that I've shown you earlier, which is the Imagine or the Onchain block paper and scissors, it's made with React. Yeah, so I'm just saying that you can actually make a certain game with mod with different types of game engines. Alright? So now I'll be showing you a code examples starting with the incrementing app. So I'm going to show you the UI. So excuse me for a bit. So don't be overwhelmed by the code that you're seeing on the screen. Yeah, so I'm just running the mod itself by running dev, pnpm dev. That's why earlier we required you to install the pnpm in order to run mod. So now it's running. So as you can see there on the screen, we have 2 elements. So this is what we're going to be doing. So as you can see, there are 2 elements. One is the counter itself, and we have a button here that says increment. And once you've clicked increment, it's going to increment the counter text that you're seeing up there. So yeah, it incremented. So yeah, we are going to be diving into the code with the step-by-step process of how is this happening behind the interface that you're seeing right now, right? So everything is done inside the blockchain. So as you can see, if I'm going to click the increment, there is an action going on behind, and this is straight to the blockchain itself. So it's really instant. Alright, so now let's move back to the presentation itself. So if you're going to remember, Maurice earlier gave an example that there are 2 boxes when it comes to the on-chain game development, right? The one is front end, and the other one is smart contracts. So same with mod. If you're going to start creating with mod, this is the starting base repository that you're going to have. Please don't mind this VS Code and the node modus folder. This is generated once you've run install. It is going to contain 2 packages. One is client, and the other one is the contracts. So everything that the user can see on the screen it's going to be inside of this directory. And all of the logics and the database structures and the tables that you're going to declare is going to be inside the contracts directory. So that is the base structure of MUD at first. So let's move on with the first step. Just like what I've said earlier, the first step with the process of building with MUD is the configuration. So I'm going straight to the, if you're going to create a MUD example, MUD file example, and basically just go to the MUD config, which you can see inside the contracts folder, which is here. If you're going inside of this, there is a MUD config inside of this directory. And yeah, let's say, just like the example that I've shown earlier, which is the counter application that increments a number. This is the first step of creating an incremental application. I declared a counter table. It's just a table, and it contains a data that is a number. UN32 means it's just a number in smart contracts definition. It's just a positive integer, right? So once I run pnpm dev, just like what I did earlier before I showed you the counter application, it's going to generate a smart contracts. That's one of the features of MUD. It actually does this for you. Because if this does not exist, you're going to be coding one function for get, one function for set. It automatically generates everything for you in order to interact with the UI. So now, as you can see, there is a get and set. The function get is the one that we can call into the UI so that we can get the counter value itself. And we also have a set function that we can use into the UI so that we can change the value of the counter, right? So this is just generated, so don't mind this for now. I just want you to understand that one of the features of MUD is that it can generate a smart contract for you based on the schema that you've provided here, all right? So if you do not understand any words that I am saying, please list them down, because later on, we're going to have a Q&A section. And then you can just ask anything that you want to ask. Maybe if there is not a word that's not familiar to you, yeah, you can just ask them. So the next one is, now that we are done with the configuration thing, we are now moving with the logical stuff of your application or your on-chain game, just the logic stuff. So here, because we are creating an incremental app, so we have a button there if you're going to remember the UI. And the goal of that button is to increment the number that is there on the screen. So here, this is the step number 2. So yeah, if you're going to remember, step 1 is we build a configuration. Step number 2 is actually building the system. So here, we have an increment system, and it contains one function only. It contains the increment function that it returns a number, and it will return. So if you're going to remember, we created a table earlier here, the counter table. So we've just directly called it from the tables folder. It's going to be generated here as well. So we've just assigned the counter get. So we already have the existing value of counter, and we've assigned it into this variable here. So we just said counter is going to be this one. And now we created a new value that returns the incremented number. Counter plus 1. Yeah, it's just that. And then we've assigned the new value into the counter itself. The one that we created earlier. So we just assigned it there. And then we just returned the value. So that is the basic increment function. So imagine what you can do if you're planning on making a battle system with that. So for now, we are sticking with the increment system. It's just increment a number. So now that we're done with step number 2, we have the system already. So now we are jumping into the UI so that we can return the value and we can actually interact with the value or manipulate the value. So that is the system calls. So here, this is the create system calls that you can see when you're going to the client directory. So now we're not in the contract directory anymore. We are in the client directory. So this is all front-end based, all UI based. So Mod will automatically generate a folder that's about Mod. And there's one folder called Create Client Components. So these are the, so this is a function that we made, or Mod made, that you are just calling the world send. So world send is one of the features of Mod. It actually gets all of the smart contracts that you've generated earlier so that you can call them into your UI, into your client folder. So now, it can see, so that we just inputted the first parameter of world send is the function increment. So you're going, so if you remember earlier, we've created a function called increment that increments a certain number, or the counter number. And since it's not accepting any parameters, let's go back, yeah, it doesn't accept any parameters here. So the second parameter of world send is empty. Sorry. There, it's empty. So we just run this transaction and just return it. And the increment function, yeah, so please don't get confused. So we created another increment function, but for the UI now. So this is what we are going to call into the UI itself. Let's say if you have an HTML or any type of like Unity base file. All right. So now we are inside the application component. So this is from React. So but don't mind it for now. Just mind that this is the text that I've shown you earlier, and this is the button that I've shown you earlier. So now we are rendering stuff into the UI. So here, as you can see, Mod contains certain features that you can actually call the counter that we've declared earlier into the smart contracts straight to the UI. And now whatever we are getting here is being actually rendered into the screen. So that's why earlier, when we run the application, it immediately shows the number of 0. And now after we incremented, we have a button here that says the button has an on-click functionality that calls the increment function. This is the one that we've created earlier into the system calls. So if you're going to remember, we have 4 boxes earlier, right? The UI calls is this one. So this is the UI calls that we can actually call into our user interface or our front-end application code. So yeah, Mod already consists of different features that will help you render everything and just set everything into the blockchain itself. So yeah, that's just an example. And then after this one, we are going to have an interactive workshop that we are going to code. We are going to actually add a decrement function. So if you're going to remember this one, we are going to add a decrement button to just decrease the number 3. Because currently we only have one function, right? And the function of our game is to, or our application is to increment a number. So now, yeah, we're going to start. So that's with the short introduction of Mod Framework. I hope you understood a bit. Even if it's just a simple terms or simple process that you can build with Mod. All right, so I think it's time to start the interactive workshop. All right, thanks guys.
So let's look at the things that we need. Who else has laptops? Okay, it's fine. So we just need all of this to get Mod to run. So, okay. So,
Dito na po kami sa foundry.
okay.
Hindi lang po namin alam kung saan namin ito i-run lang.
This type foundry ako.
Dito lang dito.
Ginawa niyo ba ito? Yung source, C, users, bash, or C?
Hindi po.
Okay, copy mo yan hanggang bash or C.
Okay.
Without the,
With the
You gonna try it?
Hindi, I want to go on Node.js on my. That'll be enough.
If you need Wi-Fi, Leroy can get you online.
Ah, yeah.
Leroy's our one of our systems.
Boogie guest.
He's also like you. He like sees security and walks the other direction. Which one is it? Hope you guess.
Okay na? Ay, nagawa mo na? Ah, sige. Sige na lang, start na tayo. Okay. So, start na tayo. So, ngayon, like what Lance has said before, we'll try to do a decrement function so that we can subtract 1 from the counter. So, we'll do this all together, okay? So, right now, Lance will try to add a system, add a new functionality to the system in that contract. So, just go to whatever your folder name is, contracts, and then it will go to source, SRC, and then systems. So we'll just put it inside the increment system. Okay? So let's try creating a decrement function. Okay. So this is written in Solidity. So we're not going to explain everything about Solidity, but this is the coding to create a decrement function. So what Lance is doing is he's trying to get the counter, what's the value of the counter, and then it's almost going to be the same as the increment one, just subtract 1. So it's the same function, semicolon length. now Lance is creating a public function. Sanay sana, walang semicolon. Okay, so is everyone following the decrement function? So now there's one more function in the systems, and it's called decrement. And now we're going to try to hook it up to the UI. So after going through that, Lance is going to the client folder. And in the client folder, again, there's SRC, there'll be MUD, and then create system calls.
Tapos, ano ko yun? Rate system calls. Gawa ko ng panibagong calls na.
So right now, Lance is making a function called decrement on the UI side to call the one on the blockchain. So you just put in the function name and then just the arguments, which is nothing. So an empty array. You can
Hindi na magawin stream.
Hindi na siya mag...
gawin mo naman.
Hindi. Okay mo pa rin. Await stream body. Ito pa, kapeng ko dito.
Hindi ata. Bakit nagkano yung taga-radio na ay, di pa nag-build. So what's the another cool thing about
automatic mag-rebuild.
another cool thing about MUD framework is that it automatically generates that decrement function, and it makes it so that when you type it in right now, WorldSend actually knows that there's a decrement function on the blockchain.
Yeah, so now there's no errors, as you can see.
Wala na. I-call. I-return.
So is everyone still following? Okay. So let's move on to the next part. So Lance will hook up the decrement function that he made into the UI. So it's going to app.tsx, which is in the root of SRC. What the hell's your Lance?
Ito pong, ayan.
Tapos na lang yung styling din.
Dito lang, same.
So it had to go. So it came from system calls.
So now
System calls.
Lance is trying to get the decrement function from system calls, and then he's going to use it in the button.
Ini-import niya, kuya.
So that when you click a button, it actually decrements.
Sandi, itan mo.
Di ba ginamit?
Sige, itan mo. Ito, tapos para i-refresh mo.
Kailangan mo ata yung event that prevents default logs.
Wala.
Magpamagay.
Ay, wait lang. Baka... Hindi na kasi. Wala.
Wow, sana all. Okay, so let's try to see if this actually works. Oh my kulay. You see it? Okay.
Baka mali ko na.
So now you should be able to decrement the
Ano po?
Any questions? Wala.
May class name ata. naka-editors lang, naka-ano lang pala. Kasi kinopen na natin yung maling director ito ng sabi. Is it good? So, yun, gana natin to. I'm watching for changes to baka iwan direct.
So was everyone able to decrement and increment?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay.
Ayaw magkaroon ng changes doon sa mismong terminal. Kasi diba,
I mean, because kami
Yep.
Pag mag-a-announce pa kayo ng snack, bago yun, mag-announce ka na i-feature yun yung ginawa ng yung meeting. Pag may gusto, pwede kita. Pag may interested, tignan yung imaging, pwede yung ipakita yung
wala pa, hindi pa siya online.
hindi online, pero ay wala rin sila.
Meron si John Mark.
Pwede na.
Dala niya.
Dala na laptop niya.
Bago mag-snack, habang nag-i-snack, baka gusto na.
Lalo natin pa.
Alice, check mo nga kung kasama directory ba yung ano niya. Nice.
Increment at decrement dito magana?
Hindi nagpapakita.
Ayan na. Saan ang anong saan?
Kaya sa bash.
Bash? Share na pala. Tama. Ano ba yan?
Hindi ko rin eh.
Okay.
You
For some reason,
Hindi na kasi yung code. Ayun, sanay kasi kayo sa...
auto-save. Okay. Sorry. Auto-save kasi sa akin.
Hindi siya pila. Hindi pala na-save. Sorry.
Ano po ba eh? Pinatay ko eh. Kaya pinatay ko. Kaya akala ko may something na.
Opo, tinanggal ko po yung ano, yung auto-save.
Baka nakakapaglan.
Opo, kasi daw dito, may auto-save siya na kapag enter mo, nag-auto-save. Tapos, sasaka natin na naman yung error.
Anday pa kayo after kasi mo yung session.
Pero may exit.
Hindi mo sabihin sa kanya na install na there's no
Pwede mo sabihin sa kanya na install niya sa legend na.
Baka may mali po sa code.
Kasi kinopya lang mo.
Ano second part? Hindi, yun na yung second part. Yun, sila na mag-figure out ng ano. After na.
Ano po? Control S.
Function pa rin.
Hindi kasi yung shell yan eh. Bawal siya. Baka pwede mo ano ng bash. Siya talaga. Pwede mo ba kunin? Patay mo yan. Gusto ko talaga yung confidence lang. Ganyan pa lecturer na kami ng PS1.
Ano po ba idea na kinikli?
Intelligence.
Intelligent. May intelligent mo.
Okay, tapos na tayo. Dito na tayo eh.
Yan.
Yan,
Ano na po?
okay.
Anong issue?
Sige.
Ibang terminal.
So, for the next part,
Ay, gumagana.
we want to challenge you to try to create something where you can add a multiplier. So instead of adding 1 or decrementing by 1, you add by the value of the multiplier. So like here, Lance will create an input multiplier. Iyan naman lang yung react, Lance.
Yeah. Gagawin na ba natin?
Yan. Iyan mo yung react part siguro.
Okay.
Who knows react? Oh, very good. Oh my God, job requirement.
Anong reaction sa mo?
Okay.
So, yan.
So that every time you on change, Lance,
Mhm.
every time you change the value of the multiplier on change, it will change a multiplier on the contract side. Okay? Ilagay mo na yung either targeted values. So that's how you get the value of the multiplier. Lagyan mo ng new state sa labas. Or hindi na kailangan, no?
Yeah.
Pwede pala na.
Anong target? Okay yan.
So every time you change this one, it will change how much you add and how much you subtract. Okay?
Let's say 2.
So you can try to figure it out. How would you do it? Or you can do it as an assignment. Okay? Looks like we're running out of time. Let's just do this as an assignment next.
Wala po. Hindi ko mo maintindihan yung syntax. Naiintindihan ko yung concept.
May concept. Okay lang yun yung mahalaga.
Yung concept.
This is the concept.
So, by Monday, we will post yung presentation and then yung activity through Facebook.
Through Facebook. Ba may Facebook naman?
Of Black Devs.
Okay.
From the start to end, we will post yung presentation para magawa niyo siya sa bahay.
Sige po.
Yeah. So that's it for this Block Dance meetup. Yes. We'd like to thank everyone who attended, and before we go on, and we actually have snacks prepared, but
You
before
want a picture, right?
before that, we want to take a picture.
And you'll give people certificates with your signature on it?
Wow.
Yeah.
We're also providing Dumating ka pa rin.
Sige, alas na lang muna natin yung table, tapos tayo mag-picture.
So, i-push back natin yung mga tables.
Alam mo, may 2 years ka pa.
May cheers pa ako
Ay,
yan.
wala, 2 years.
Para mag-grind. parang hindi lang 3 years eh. Parang abang buhay na ito.
Wag naman. Okay lang yan. Sa first year talaga, kaya mahirap. Nangalati ba kayo?
Ano din sa last dance?
Ay, hindi naman po. Lahat naman po kami.
Talaga? Ako yung first year, nangalati.
Mga nakapalit na naman. Perfect.
Katie, push back.
Mahirapan nila.
Nakita si Chat.
Okay. Siyempre, sa lahat ng best picture. I-freeze ba natin sa block left na? Yung block left
Ay,
daw na sa
nagugot ko.
David, don't worry. I-play mo.
You are something.
Oh, okay. Sige, okay mahiya. Take a picture. Sige, okay mahiya. Wala akong hiya. Sige na. Para makapag-stick tayo. Guys, gusto mo na kumain din. Baka gusto mo kumain.
Hindi. Ano ba to?
You're in the back. You're in the back row.
Pasok mo na ito doon.